Labour's by-election defeat is far worse than I think they realise. Not my words. The words of Professor Sir John Curtice. Polling expert Sir John Curtice, Britain's leading guru on such matters as polling and elections, says reform remains the major threat to Labour, despite the party finishing second in the Gorton and Denton by-election. The Greens won the seat, Reform came second, Labour third. But in a constituency Labour had comfortably at the last general election. In fact, massively. Curtice is now arguing that the result does show limits to Reform's appeal. But, he argues, don't draw the wrong conclusion. The party's prospects, he said, have not significantly weakened. In other words, Reform remains electorally very dangerous indeed for Labour, and Labour is still incredibly vulnerable. The professor was joined in this assessment by another professor called Robert Ford, who is an election analyst. He described the result as a nightmare scenario for the government. He said the argument is very, very simple. He says Labour is losing support from all directions, from the centre, from the right, and now from the left. There is no part of the Labour Party that can be felt as safe. It's a squeeze on every flank. They are sitting there like a lemon, waiting for a very large gin and tonic. Now, Gorton and Denton was almost a perfect test case, they say. Student-heavy areas, diverse urban wards where the Greens performed strongly, working-class neighbourhoods where Reform targeted voters. Labour was caught in the middle. It had nowhere to go. It was not going to appeal to those young people who are fed up with Labour, certainly not going to appeal to the Reform areas. So who were they appealing to? Well, traditionally, it would have been Muslims, but, well, basically, Starmer's alienated them. And they had some very heavy campaigning. They've got all the big hitters up there, with the exception of Starmer. Well, he went there, but he wasn't allowed to talk to anyone. Good Lord, no, the man's toxic. But they've gone from more than 50% in 2024, and in just over 18 months, they've halved it. A massive fall. And if that kind of fall is put across the whole of Britain, and indeed if that result was put across the whole of Britain, Labour would struggle to get 30 seats at the next general election. Sorry, trying to be impassionate here. But the critics are blaming the leadership. They're saying it is basically 99% Starmer's fault, decisions he's made. The big one being the Andy Burnham debacle. Should have had Burnham in. Burnham would have won it, although that would have weakened Starmer. But they now have a very difficult choice. It's a strategic dilemma. They are stuck on the horns of a strategic dilemma. Move to the right to compete with Reform. They'll risk losing the progressive voters to the Greens. Move to the left to stop the Greens, and they will risk losing centrist and right-hand support. Either path carries risk. Either path weakens the party. That, of course, is the electoral trap that Starmer has steered his party into, full steam ahead, without looking. Upcoming elections in Scotland and Wales, as well as the local elections, are going to create a lot more problems for Labour in total, and for Starmer in particular. And analysts warn the party risks losing everything. It is almost existential now. Reform appealing to the working class, Greens to the progressives, Lib Dems to those who just don't really want to vote Labour. And then you've got all the other minor parties that will attract things. Where are Labour going? Well, according to Professor John Curtice, straight down the plug hole. And you've got to be honest, glug, glug, glug. Bye-bye Labour. Thanks a lot. Bye.